All right. Well, good morning, everyone. Welcome. We are going to get things kicked off here. Excited that you could all join us. Welcome to our kickoff to a healthy new year with Network Health. We're really glad to have you here and happy 2024, everyone. I'm Kelly Vanderwielen, the Senior Community Engagement Coordinator here at Network Health, and I'm going to be your host for today. Chrissy and I, who I will introduce here in just a minute, we're looking forward to spending some time with you and again, appreciate you joining us. As a reminder, the information provided in this webinar today is not intended to provide medical advice. All of the information, content, and material is for informational purposes only. Before we get started, just a few housekeeping items to cover with each of you. First, if you have any technical issues during our event today, please leave the webinar and try joining again. To leave the webinar, simply click the Leave button in the lower right-hand corner of your screen. If you do have a health-related question today, feel free to submit your questions by clicking the Q&A button at the bottom of your screen. We will also have some time at the end to answer any questions that you may have. Important, though, to protect your privacy, please do not submit questions with personal health information in them. If your question is too complex, or if we're unable to answer it during the webinar, we may also direct you to contact our member experience team. For our Network Health members joining us today, you can find that number on the back of your ID card. After today's event, there also will be a short survey. If you could please help by answering the questions and give us your feedback on how we did today, we'd greatly appreciate it. All right, so to kick things off, I want to share what you can expect from our webinar today. First, I'm going to go through some brief information about Network Health for those of you who may not be familiar. Next, I will introduce you to our special guest, Christy, and she will present information on the dimensions of wellness and share some valuable information on how to set achievable goals in 2024. Remember, if you have any questions during today's presentation, please submit those by typing them into the Q&A. We will also have that opportunity for you to engage with us and each other by answering some polls throughout today's presentation. So please feel free to join in and share with us during that time. So today's event gives us at Network Health the opportunity to connect with you and also support one another along our health and wellness journeys. Whether we're in a virtual room like today or at our in-person events, our connection to our community is important. For over 4 decades, Network Health has established strong roots in our local Wisconsin communities by putting our members first. We are owned by Freighter Health, and we take the extra steps needed to make sure that health insurance is affordable and also understandable so that our members can make the very most of their coverage. Network Health improves the lives of local business owners, individuals, and families as we pursue our mission to create healthy and strong Wisconsin communities. Our employees demonstrate their dedication and passion for helping others improve their lives, their health, and overall wellness by getting involved with organizations that serve our community. We put in the extra effort here at Network Health because we want to, and not because we have to. So I just want to put a little message out there. If you're interested in finding out about other ways that you can connect with Network Health throughout the community, please visit us at networkhealth.com/community. All right, so it is my pleasure now to introduce my Network Health colleague, Chrissy Bowe, who is going to share information today with all of you about wellness and setting goals. Chrissy is a Senior Community Wellness Coordinator here at Network Health. Hi, Chrissy. Thanks so much for being here today.
Thank you. Thank you guys for being here. So we're going to start off our talk on goals with a little poll about flat tires. So Kelly's going to put up a poll, and I just want you to answer that poll. If you have ever had a flat tire, and you can click yes or no. All right, so we're seeing those answers come in. It looks like quite a few people have had a flat tire before. And if you've ever experienced a flat tire, you know what kind of happens. You have a bumpy ride. It can make steering difficult. Sometimes you all of a sudden have to come to a sudden stop. You can get flustered or just that feeling of annoyance because it's slowing down your destination to getting to where you're wanting to go, or just prevents you from getting there altogether, which can be frustrating. And similar things can happen when we're working on our wellness goals. So we'll talk about those different spokes that can affect our ride as well. You can go to the next slide. So the spokes on our wheel as we're traveling down the road can include different things. It can include our social life. It can include our career, our nutrition, family, finances, our spirituality or having meaning and purpose in our life, how we're feeling stimulation intellectually, our recreation, intimacy, and even our breathing. So I mentioned a couple different things that are often terms used to describe wellness or well-being. Kelly's going to put up the next poll to see what other words might come to your mind as you think about your wellness. Any other ones that I maybe didn't mention? And then you can just type your answer in. I'll give you a few more seconds just to finish that and see what maybe people wrote in. Great. So how you define your wellness and your well-being, we each have different values and things that are important to us when it comes to our well-being. And although there might be some that are stronger than others, each one of those things that I mentioned or that you wrote down, they play a critical role in our overall wellness. And we're trying to find balance among these various areas, whether it's our social life, our career, our family, recreation, and just our overall well-being. And that balance, it affects how our wheel is going down the road, whether we're having a smooth ride or it's a little bit bumpy. So I'll walk you through a common model for wellness in those different dimensions. If you want to go to the next slide, Kelly. This is a common model that uses 8 pillars to encompass the different dimensions. So starting with your spiritual dimension, this one focuses on discovering what your meaning and purpose is in life and establishing that peace and harmony. So some questions you could ask yourself here are, do you have that sense of serenity? Do you have that meaning and purpose in your life? Do you have a sense of faith or a higher power? Then we have our physical dimension, and this dimension considers your overall health and what is needed to maintain the quality of life to be able to do the things that you want to do. So as you think about your physical wellness, are you eating a balanced diet? Are you getting 3 days of exercise every week? Are you at a reasonable weight for your height? Are you generally free from illness? Do you use alcohol in moderation? Those are the types of things that affect our physical health. Then we have our emotional health, and this is being in touch with your feelings and emotions and having a sense of resiliency to cope with situations that come up in your life in a productive way. So some questions here might be, do you have a sense of fun and laughter? Are you able to not take yourself so seriously? Can you label what you're feeling, what's kind of going on in your life? And are you able to adapt to change? For the occupational dimension, that can be finding fulfillment in your job and knowing that it has meaning and it's fulfilling for you. And that you also have that ability to find balance or harmony between your work and your leisure time. So asking yourself, is my work rewarding to me? Are you proud of your accomplishments at work? Do you take on unrealistic responsibilities? Those would be some questions to reflect on there. For the intellectual dimension, this is Having the ability to be open to new experiences and ideas while you're growing through life. And that could be with time management or being able to see different perspectives on an issue, being able to develop your own ideas or opinions versus just agreeing or disagreeing with other people. Then we have the environmental dimension, and this could be our physical environment, the environment that we're in every day. Does that support our wellness, whether we're at home or in the office? But it's also our physical earth and how our habits in our daily life impact our environment. Then we have our social dimension, and that encompasses our relationships, respect, and community engagement, how we relate to other people, and how we connect and get along with those that we're surrounded by. So are you able to resolve conflict in your life? Do you have an awareness of how others may be feeling and being able to respond appropriately? Do you have at least 3 people in your life that you have a close, trusting relationship with you? Do you have a sense of belonging and not being isolated? And then with the 8th dimension, the financial one, this is having money to meet our basic needs and a plan for the future. So are you living beyond your means, or do you have a budget that you follow? Are you able to pay off your credit cards every month? Would you be able to cover an emergency if one came up in your life? So now we're going to check our tires, so to speak, by looking at each of these dimensions and giving ourselves a rating. So Kelly, you can go to the next slide. There's an image there. So I realize you don't have a hand up to do this, but if you have a piece of paper next to you, you can open a note on your phone or have a Post-it, and maybe you want to write these different dimensions on there. And then you're going to rate yourself using a 1 to 10 scale, with 1 being low and 10 being high. So when it comes to your emotional health, your intellectual health, your physical, social, environmental, financial, and spiritual well-being, I want you to write down on a 1 to 10 where you currently feel that you are at this point. And I'll give you a little bit to just fill that out. So you can go ahead. Give you just a couple more seconds to fill in your responses. And then we'll do the next poll to see which dimension you rated yourself highest in. So Kelly, if you want to pull up that poll. So on here, when you thought about each of those dimensions, which dimension were some of the ones that you were closer to a 10? It's a multiple choice and you can pick multiple. Just put on there which ones you felt were the highest. And then our next poll is going to be, are we able to see those results, what people responded to, which dimension was the highest?
Yep, Chrissy, they're coming in. We're still getting some answers,
okay.
so just maybe give it another couple of seconds here.
Okay, great.
Can you see those results on your end, Chrissy?
I can't see them on my end.
Okay. Well, we've got some pretty widespread percentages as far as the highest. It looks like right now financial is winning at about 29% of our participants choosing that one. And then intellectual looks like it's coming in at second, and social is right in there too.
Okay, great. That's awesome to hear. So those are the things that are going really well. They're positive in your life at this time. So then you can pull up the next poll. So which of those maybe are signaling that you have a bumpy ride? Ones that maybe you scored lower on. And this poll is anonymous. We don't know how you're responding to them.
All right, results are coming in. So it looks like right now, physical is being identified as the lowest amongst our attendees. And spiritual's coming in at about 23% right now of our participants. So,
okay.
And there's some environmental as well.
Okay. Yeah, so it's great to pause and just do that reflection, and you can kind of see where some areas of your life that may need some extra attention at this time. So you can go to the next slide. So even though you've identified the areas that are going well and maybe the ones that are causing your tire to be a little bit flat, that doesn't necessarily mean that it's the priority to your life. And so you can do this at different points throughout the year. I did one a while back, and this is how I filled out my wheel. If I were to do it again now, my wheel might look a little bit different. But if I think of this as like a bike tire, it would be a little bumpy ride going down the road. And so it might be something that you want to consider checking back in with yourself on periodically. But next, we'll talk about where to kind of start with setting an area of focus. And that is starting with your why. So we've talked about some areas that you may want to focus on with your well-being and where you can begin to set a goal. Oftentimes this time of the year is when people are thinking about goals they want to be working towards, or reflecting back on goals that they set in the past and that maybe didn't work out. And usually around this point of the year, about 80% of people have actually quit their goal. And I don't want that for you. So I'm going to help you to kind of create goals that you can stick with and be proud of. So we'll start with your why. Understanding why this goal is important to you right now. Why do you want to begin to make a change? Why now versus a month or two from now? And what would happen if you didn't make a change? Sort of ask yourself those questions, and that can help you define what your why is. Then you want to assess your willingness to make a change. Using that same 1 to 10 scale, if 1 is low and 10 is high, where would you put yourself on your willingness to make a change in that physical dimension or that spiritual dimension that may have been low? Maybe you rated yourself as a 6. And so then you can ask yourself, if I'm a 6 right now, what would it take for my willingness to be a 7 or an 8? Or if your willingness to make a change in that area was maybe a 2, is this really something that's a priority for you at this time? So it leads us to number 2 in choosing goals that really matter. Your why must be important to you, or it is going to be easy to talk yourself out of that thing when it becomes inconvenient, or you don't feel like it, or it's just really cold outside and it's more comfortable to stay in your home. So in my time working with people on setting their goals, some of the ones that stand out strongly in my mind are things that I've heard that were like, I want to start running and being active because it's important to me to run my child's cross-country parents' night event with them versus sitting on the sidelines. Or I had someone tell me one time, my wife and I were never able to have children, but we sponsor kids in Honduras, and I want to be healthy enough to go down there and visit those kids every year. So you can see how that why is very strong and motivating for that person. So then pick 1 or 2 things that you can focus on that may seem really simple, but it's going to give you more leverage and help you to be consistent along the way. So while a simple 10-minute walk may not seem like much, it's better than a 0-minute walk. So committing to a specific small action, picking that one thing that you can focus on in a time that you're going to do it, and then identifying any potential barriers that can get in the way or that may trip you up. Oftentimes, those barriers are things like time or motivation. So if time is a barrier, how could you break that down into a more realistic amount of time? If improving your physical dimension of wellness was important to you and that was the area you wanted to focus on, maybe eventually you want to get to doing 30 or 45-minute walk every day. But right now you're not doing anything. So maybe just doing 5 minutes a day is a good start. And if motivation is the barrier, oftentimes that is because we are okay letting ourselves down. But if we invite somebody else along for the ride or to go on a walk with us, we don't want to disappoint them. So who can you invite with you on your journey so that you show up and you follow through on your goal? And then lastly, writing it down and keeping track of your progress. Thinking back to when you were a kid in school and you got stars on your papers or a check mark, keeping track of your progress that way is a great way to reflect back and see how often you were actually following through on what you said. So you can go to the next slide, and we talked about our willingness to change, how to start, our why. And then we actually need to begin a new habit, or maybe it's breaking an old habit. And so by starting in a small way, starting with something small that's easy for you to do. So using that walking as an example again, if you're not walking currently and want to increase your physical activity, it could be as simple as getting in the routine of you've decided when you get home from work, you're going to go for a walk. But right now, maybe you just need to get in the habit of putting your tennis shoes on. That doesn't seem like a very big accomplishment, but you will eventually build a habit that when I get home from work, I put my shoes on. Then once that becomes habitual, then maybe you walk to the end of your driveway. That becomes a habit. Then you put your shoes on, walk to the end of your driveway, walk around the block. And before you know it, you'll be walking a mile or more, just simply because of how you built that habit. Then you can make it easy. So making that behavior change stick, it needs to be easy and possible. If you're wanting to walk more, it could be leaving some shoes by your desk or maybe in your vehicle so that when the opportunity presents itself, not having the right equipment or footwear isn't going to prevent you from being active. And then making it fun. So if you set your goal to be walking, but you really don't like walking, you prefer dancing or swimming or water aerobics instead, maybe doing one of those activities that you're actually going to look forward to is going to make it more fun and make you want to follow through on it. And then making it social. We talked about having that accountability partner. We are less likely to bail out when somebody else is counting on us. So I encourage you to find somebody else who is looking to do the same things that you are. So next we're gonna look at writing down our goal. We talked about different ways that we can make our goals happen. And you may have heard of the acronym setting SMART goals. That means setting something specific. So who, what, where, when, why, when are you going to begin doing that thing? And then how are you going to measure it? How are you going to know if you're achieving your goal or not? And is your goal achievable? Is this too extreme for you? Is this actually doable for you? And is it relevant? Why do you want to do this? How does it relate to your overall wellness vision for yourself? And then thinking about how long is it going to take? Initially starting out, where do you want to start? When are you going to start? And how long are you going to do the thing for? So on the paper that you have by you or the note in your phone, I'll give you just a minute to write down a SMART goal for yourself. So for example, that could be, I'm going to walk for 10 minutes on my treadmill before work starting Monday. So now you wrote down your goal. You are more likely to achieve it by simply writing your goal down. I encourage you to put that note somewhere where you're going to see it, or take a picture of it with your phone. Maybe put that as your screensaver, someplace where you're going to be reminded of your goal. Next, we'll talk about the opportunity for change. And we talked about our willingness to change and really reflecting on that. Am I really ready for this change right now? What has maybe gotten in the past before if you've tried to make a similar goal, and what can you learn from that? Some of those barriers may be time. It may be a belief that you have or how you talk to yourself, something that you've always done and you're not seeing a different way to do it. It could be social pressure or peer pressure, and you're worried about going against the grain in that sense. So like if everybody at your office eats through their lunch at their desk and you want to start walking on your lunch, you may be going against the grain there, but eventually your coworkers might start seeing that you're taking a short break to walk and they'll want to join with you. And you can change your culture simply by doing something simple like that. And maybe a lack of confidence in yourself, health status, depending upon what health conditions you have, or your own personal motivation. So reflect on those things that may have gotten in the past before and identify some ways that you could work around them at this point in your life. And then look at increasing your habits in small ways. So when you're setting goals, I like to think about the Aesop's fable, the tortoise and the hare. You maybe read this as a kid, or you're reading it to your kids or your grandkids. But thinking about that story, if you remember, the tortoise kind of compared himself to the hare and vice versa. And that's easy to do when we're trying to change our life or do something a little bit different. We look at where other people are and compare ourselves against them, and we either think that we're better or we're worse. And that's not really doing us any favors. And so focus on making those small improvements, thinking about the tortoise and the hare story. The hare ran the race to prove that he could win it, whereas the tortoise ran the race to prove that he could run. So how can you be more like the tortoise and prove to yourself that you can do it, that you can follow through on your goal? That could be that you're wanting to read one more paragraph than you read yesterday, or you're trying to get 200 more steps in than the day before, or you're going to leave one more bite on your plate at dinner time. The tortoise seemingly had no talent or speed, but he did have the willingness to be consistent. And that's what I want for you. I want you to be consistent with your goals. So instead of starting too much too soon, start small and gradually improve. Along the way, your confidence, your willpower, and your motivation will increase as you stick with your habit. So then lastly, is to be patient. Being patient is an incredible skill. With patience and consistency, you will make great progress. And more than likely, when it comes to changing your habits, you're going to go slower than you would like, or slower than you probably think your progress should be. But being patient through that, and to focus on doing those things that you can sustain. So we had talked about making your habit easy. And at the beginning, it should feel really easy because you're more likely to be consistent. And then as you do that habit more often, you can increase the time, the intensity, or whatever that will gradually make that more challenging. But remember, when you're starting a new habit, the expert at anything was once a beginner, just as you may be today. So I'm going to leave you with what is your next step, and to write down what your next step would be. And as we wrap up today, I want to thank you for attending, for taking some time out of your day to join us. As a reminder of what Kelly said, there is a survey at the end. We ask that you please complete that. And to visit our networkhealth.com/community to find more events like this one that you can join with us in the future. So thanks again and have a wonderful day.
Thanks, everyone. Take care. Enjoy your day.